I'm sorry that, in the earlier press conference that Russell and Andy and Leo and Pat and Grant and Eric, that those guys were left out, but my producer said I had a limited amount of time for that earlier press conference. But, really, right now, obviously this is all, uncharted territory for everybody. And, the biggest thing is just, from our perspective, is just keeping in close contact with our student athletes, making sure that they're doing well, making sure that they're safe, checking in with them on a daily basis, whether it's about just life in general or academics or, if they're staying in shape, doing push-ups in their house or sit-ups in their house or just trying to connect. And it's been really important that we know where our players are at all times as well, just to make sure that from a safety standpoint and a health standpoint that everybody's doing well.
Melissa, go ahead.
Coach, hi. Hope you guys are doing well in the house. Wanted to ask first about the message that you gave your players, that emotional message after the SEC tournament, and just how hard that was and how hard these past couple of days have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the hardest thing was, when you win a game, especially in a tournament atmosphere, we were excited with the play, in the game against Vanderbilt. We thought that, both sides of the ball, momentum was kind of going in our way. Our guys felt good about competing in that tournament. We really liked the bracket that we had. And so, when the game was over, we all ate together. We prepped a little bit. They went to their rooms. Our staff stayed up late, continuing our preparation. That night, very, very late, we had the entire, meeting room full with sheets of paper on what we were going to walk through from a schematic standpoint and also personnel standpoint. And then about 5 minutes before we were about to have our breakfast, Hunter and I talked, and, Hunter let me know that, we weren't going to be playing. And, when I first started giving the speech, it was, kind of factual. But then when I started looking at guys and kind of the shock in their face and started thinking back to, the vision that we had sold and the goals that we had come together as a group, it was probably, without a question, the hardest, speech that I've ever had to give a team. And then we just got back, as quick as we possibly could. The university did an incredible job of getting us back, to Fayetteville in an incredibly timely manner. We were in shock after the meeting. We basically went and packed and were on a plane. And then we had a meeting the next day and, kind of told the team what was going on. And now everybody's, with the exception of one guy, is kind of at their home and with their families.
You talked about being in uncharted territory. The NCAA men's tournament would have started today. How weird is it with no basketball to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's incredibly, for all of us, it's even, if once the NCAA tournament does come to an end for teams, or once the tournament's, over after the championship game, you still have NBA basketball to watch. And, for all of us, like, to not have any games or people competing or getting ready for competition, it's hard on Coach Neighbors. It's hard for the baseball staff and their team. And it's hard on everybody in the athletic field. But, the bottom line is, just the safety of everybody and trying to get back to normal as quick as we can by following, the instructions of what the experts are telling us.
And on a lighter note to end for myself, how much are you helping Mariah with all her schoolwork?
Well, I'm not really good in math or reading. but I am good at discipline. So Danielle does all the teaching, and then I come in when the focus gets lost a little bit and try to redirect her. So it's kind of a dual partnership in this homeschooling. But I will say, in all seriousness, like people that have homeschooled, wow, what an incredible, I mean, I marvel at people that can do it, because it does change the way that your relationship at home, how much you're with your child. I think everybody's communicating with loved ones right now much more than they were probably 2 weeks ago, and spending quality time with loved ones as well.
Thank you, Coach.
Pete, you're up next.
Hey, Coach, looking ahead a little bit here, what kind of caliber player do you think Vontae Davis could be in a couple of years, or 2 or 3 years?
I think Devo, he does things that you can't coach. In basketball, for any coach at any level, guys that can go get their own shots or create a shot for a teammate, those guys that have a unique ability to get by their own man when the play breaks down becomes so important. And, we feel like Devo has that ability. He's crafty, he's shifty, he changes gears really quick. All those things are things that you can't teach. Obviously, he's got good length for his size. We look at him like he can play 2 positions, the 1 and the 2. He knows how to score. He's got great court vision. And then obviously, the thing that's going to be really important is just consistency from a shooting standpoint. Once we start our player development program.
Thank you.
Nate?
Oh, yeah. Eric, has Mason or Isaiah, either or both, indicated that they'll go through the process without an agent to explore the NBA?
Those conversations, just because all this stuff has happened so quick, Nate, I've reached out to both of them and just said, hey, whatever you guys are thinking, or whenever you want to talk, discuss those things. We're here for you. Communicated with both parents as well. But I think right now everything is just such a holding pattern across the board for everybody. I mean, the process this year is going to be much different than it has in the past. I've tried to gather as much information from NBA teams as I possibly can. A lot of people that are friends of mine, I'm checking in on them and then gathering information as well. And, no one really knows how all that's going to look. So it's kind of premature to talk about any process, because no one really knows, including the NBA right now.
Also, as far as there's talk of even having the seniors eligible since they didn't get to play in an NCAA tournament. Do you see that happening, and kind of what's your opinion on that?
I mean, it's probably best if I don't give a hard concrete. I certainly, just my personal opinion, I think baseball and those sports are a little bit different because they've lost competition. That's who my heart sinks for. But as far as basketball, I mean, and again, this is only my opinion. It's not anybody else's, but there were conferences that finished. They went through their conference tournament, conferences like the Mountain West, where they got a full slate of basketball in. Our players, came close. Obviously, what you play for was, that was wiped off the table for guys to try to finish, which is tough. But it's, it's no, I kind of look at it like players that, that play 8 or 9 games and get injured, lose the rest of their season. A lot of those guys don't get that year back because there's a percentile of time that you've played that you don't get an extra year. Obviously, if you get hurt after 1 or 2 games, you get that year back. And so, you know, I do, you know, I do look at it like players that have been injured, whether it's last year, 10 years from now, 5, those guys, a lot of guys that didn't even play half a year didn't get their extra year back on season-ending injuries. So the fortunate thing for, you know, the basketball players, both men and women, is we did get the majority. You know, we got all the non-conference, we got all the conference games in. You know, it was you know, the NCAA tournament, you know, for the women, and for us, it was the, you know, playing out the SEC and then seeing where we might have been after those games. So unfortunate, but again, we are fortunate that we got so much of the season in as well.
And just two more. One is the off-season workouts you have. Since right now, I think 10 people is the most you can have at the maximum, and that may start dropping. What kind of workouts do you prescribe to them while they're at home?
Yeah, I mean, you know, right now, I mean, it's hard for guys even, you know, to get into a gym. I mean, there's, depending on where, you know, some of our players live, they, you know, right now, a lot of guys don't have access to go get shots up unless it would be outside. And I think right now, I mean, you know, the bottom line is just the safety of everybody. So, you know, we would like to start, you know, giving them workout plans, and the only way we can even give them like a weightlifting plan is if we know, you know, what they have at their house, or because obviously, you know, to go into a health club, you know, is not advised at all. So right now, I think we're just in a holding pattern. You know, the biggest thing is, you know, that our guys are fine mentally, and that they, you know, really focus on their academics. I mean, I think that's the big thing right now, is to finish this academic semester strong for all of our players.
And finally, do you see this season getting, with the pandemic, even starting later than November, that they would keep, you know, getting delayed?
I mean, I would certainly hope not. I mean, you know, hopefully, you know, they'll be playing football, but you know, again, that's just a personal opinion. I mean, I'm certain, you know, I want to watch Coach Pittman and him do his work, and hopefully that, you know, at some point here in the near future, they're able to start practicing, and you know, our sport will be on its same kind of path as it always is.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate.
Bob?
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Good, Bob.
Kudos on the video. That was pretty on point. Follow up on Isaiah. Have they given you an indication of what way they're leaning? Because, you know, to me, as long as they sign with an agent, obviously it'd be good to get, you know, draft evaluation. If there is a combine, go to that. But what I mean, do you think they're going to, once that opportunity presents itself, do you think they do that, or just kind of where do you think they're leaning?
I mean, you know, really, again, Bob, I mean, you know, first of all, like the NBA Combine, you know, it's an invite only. It's 60 players. I'm only guessing that right now that is the furthest thing from what the NBA is thinking about. As far as individual workouts, I mean, right now, none of those are being set up. I've talked to enough NBA teams, because nobody's going to have players get on a plane for individual instructions anytime soon, where they, you know, have 6-man groups to work people out. So, you know, again, we, you know, at Nevada, we had, you know, 3 players their junior year test the waters, and they ended up coming back. And then the year before, we had Cameron Oliver test the waters, and he went out. But there was a clear, definitive structure and plan in place to discuss, you know, with those guys, and certainly the guys at Nevada. We put the calendar, we did the calendar for them. They did not use agents. You know, we were able to set up all their workouts. We were able to internally do all their travel. But right now, it's if you had a senior who was a lottery pick, there's nothing you could do for that particular player, and there's really not much discussion you can have until some of this stuff gets sorted out.
Yeah. You think there's a good chance Isaiah and Mason could be back?
I mean, I don't think that, again, like whatever, Mason and Isaiah, whatever they want to do, we're here to support them. We're here to gather as much information as they want us to gather. They can gather information on their own as well. But again, I think it's just, too much speculation right now, because no one knows when an NBA draft date is going to even be. There's people in the NBA, assistant coaches, that they don't know if a draft's going to happen until, well past the normal date. And again, they're only speculating as well. So, the only thing NBA teams can do right now from an evaluation standpoint is watch film of players. And that's what a lot of their scouts are doing right now.
And, as far as, kind of putting a wrap on the season, I know it didn't, you ended with a win, which is great, but it obviously ended prematurely. Just looking back on your first season here, just how would you kind of sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Bob, we're and it's the same thing I told the guys, like how proud I was of their effort. We knew we had a short roster going in, meaning short in size and also short in limited number of bodies, with 3 sit-out guys and also an open scholarship. So we were 4 scholarship players down for an entire year. I thought we played incredible basketball, with the exception maybe of the stretch when Isaiah was hurt. And, we played a game or two really well when he was hurt. And then, without him, we missed him, and our depth, lack of depth showed during that 5-game stretch in particular. But non-conference was great. Conference play, some great moments. And again, we went through just that one segment, where we lost, so many close games. In reality, we I look at the season, we didn't play well in 2 games. We did not play well at Tennessee, and we did not play well at Florida. The Missouri game on the road could have gone either way. We didn't play great, but I look at, when you think about a 30-game season or 30-plus game season, everybody in the country, from top 5 teams in the country, they play 2 games that they didn't play well. I mean, I look at a team like San Diego State. I mean, they won on a last-second buzzer beater against San Jose State, who's been, a team that struggled to get any win at all in the Mountain West the last 5 years. And it just happens where you're going to have some bad games. But I thought, as a whole, our guys laid the foundation of a group that really played hard and competed on a nightly basis.
Does it help that you won your last game, played pretty well? Like I said, no, it's not the way you want it to be over, but does that help for, carryover and things?
Bob, I do think it helps all of us because we, when you lose, it's not a good feeling, and you kind of carry it with you. And so, it did. Cause like, look, we, like for everybody in college basketball, like we abruptly, like it ended quickly. And then not only did it end quickly, but then everybody dispersed. Like normally your season is over and your guys are still coming into your office between classes. You see them at the Jones Center eating, and you can have a conversation with them face to face. Because we have the majority of our team, if they're lifting weights or getting shots throughout the course of the day, they'll come up and sit on the couch in the office or come into one of the assistant coaches. Almost every day we see 3 or 4 or 5 guys come in here, even when it's not practice time or game time. And so you don't have that time to, kind of reflect on the season and have some of these discussions and so forth. So I do think ending on a win when everybody's kind of going home with family, that it does, put a positive spin on the season.
It's making a shock. I got a few more questions, but I'll let some others chime in, and hopefully Kyle could circle back to me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I got one. Eric, besides shooting spoof videos, what do you have in mind to keep yourself occupied?
Great question. I only got one more video, that's been taped, and we're waiting to release it. So those will probably stop. But really what I'm doing is we want to try to improve in all facets. And obviously, as we look to the future, like the way we play pick and roll, with Connor Vanover is going to have to change. I mean, we're not going to switch pick and rolls like we did with Adrio, where, he ends up, meaning our 5-man ends up guarding the guard. So we're going to have to study, and that's our project right now, is studying NBA 7-footers and how teams, and particularly the Milwaukee Bucks, and how they track their pick and rolls, and how when the big man rolls, we want Connor to be in the line of the roll man. So that's one of our projects that I want to try to get done within, midweek next week, where we have a definable way that we're playing pick and rolls, especially with Connor in the game. Some of the other things is just the, playing without a play call, going back and I've found some of my dad's old playbooks and some of my dad's old scouting reports from when he coached in the NBA. And so one guy in particular, Doug Moe, when he coached the Denver Nuggets, and how they spaced the floor and got the ball up the floor, he didn't call a lot of half-court play sets. I want to try to study how the Denver Nuggets with Kiki Vandeweghe and Alex English and Michael Adams, how they played out of flow. So really, Tom, those are the type of things that we're trying to do is create projects and try to learn from those as best we can. And then I'm trying to get on as many podcasts as I can. I did a video thing with Coaching You yesterday, and have done some radio stuff, and just trying to, spread our brand, the best that we can. The videos are great for recruits, and it's kind of a branding thing, and it's interesting to get text message. I got a text message this morning from someone that works for the New York Jets. I got Phil Nevin texted me from the Yankees on it, and it's, when Sports Centers, pick something up, it's a great thing from a recruiting standpoint as well.
Absolutely. How spectacular is it to be married to someone like Danielle, who gets you, and who you guys seem to be as great of friends as you are a married couple?
Yeah, I mean, especially now, like, she's the brains behind everything, and she likes to have fun, and like when you do some of the stuff that we do, you open yourself up to some vulnerability, and she encourages it. There's probably a lot of wives that would say, hey, don't do that, you're making yourself look like whatever, but she's right along with it. The big thing is I'm trying to convince her. She won't do it, but that J-Lo and A-Rod TikTok video, I mean, I've been pushing for that hard, and just I can't get a confirmation yes that she'll do it with me yet.
And finally, who's your player who hasn't made it home yet?
Jimmy is still here.
All right, thanks, Kyle. I'm through.
Thanks, Tom. Kevin.
Hey, Lance. You talked a little bit about finishing the season on a winning note, but just some specifics from that game and being in a neutral side away from home. I thought the rim protection maybe was the best it was all year. The ball movement was obviously maybe better than it had been in a while or at times. Were there any specific things you can take away from one game? I mean, it's one matchup against a specific personnel set, but are there specifics you can take away from that game to build on as a model maybe moving forward?
I think so, Kevin. I think number one, like I thought we played the right way on both ends of the floor. I thought that like the rim protection might not have just been on blocking shots, but I thought we kept the lane compact a little bit more than we had earlier in conference play. And Isaiah helps a lot with that because he's such a great charge taker. And, the thing with Isaiah, Joe, is he understands defensive spacing. A lot of guys understand and talk a lot about offensive spacing, but Isaiah's IQ being in help defense. And look, Vanderbilt, presented some problems. I mean, they were playing really good basketball towards the last end of the conference play. They were confident. They were playing in their own city. It was a game that we were really concerned with, but I thought from a preparation standpoint, our guys were the best that they were all year. And, I think the one thing that they did a great job of is understanding that was a third season. And they kind of had a little bit more energy and enthusiasm than maybe even some other teams that I've had that had advanced in conference tournaments and advanced in the NCAA. I thought that our group was as focused, guys getting on the bus saying, "We got this thing, coach," or, during the huddle, "Hey, chill, coach. We know what we got to do." There was a confidence air about our group that game, and certainly in the locker room after the game, there was a confident, air about them as well, which is why we were so excited to advance and to continue to play.
All right, and quickly now, talking about everything being on hold, the transfer portal is spinning as fast as it's ever spinning, revolving door of players coming in. We know, we've kind of seen your playbook for that. We saw last year you brought in 5 transfers. You've already reached out to, in the double digits already. Are you looking for best available players when you are going through the portal? Is it about needs, kind of a combination of things? What's the philosophy there? And, what do you hope to accomplish in this cycle with the transfer portal?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, so much is put on social media and stuff about, certain programs contacted. Well, I mean, it's our job, to do due diligence on every available player, whether it's a high school player, whether it's a transfer. And right now, basically the whole world's come to a stop except the basketball transfer portal. And that's moving at a quicker rate than anything in the world almost. I mean, it's guys are putting their names in and but there's I would say, just like when you do due diligence on a high school player, when you start diving into the player and then you might make an initial phone call, but when you watch film, you might say, not quite what we need, or not the size that the SEC needs. And then we do a whole analytical thing on transfers, and we've kind of come up with a formula on guys that transfer up, meaning, low majors or mid majors, and try to have a formula to spit out on those stats, what those would mean at our level. And it's our job. I mean, we're still working. We're not working in a normal office environment, but we're still working around the clock. I mean, last night I didn't put my phone down till 11:30. It was one of the first nights in a while that I did not watch a TV show with my wife because of the number of people that were in the transfer portal. And we're calling our own recruits. We're calling our own players. So we're actually on the phone, or I have been on the phone more in the last week than maybe I have in 5 years of being in college basketball.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you were asked about the likelihood of both Mason Jones and Isaiah Joe either staying or leaving. That's part of recruiting too, right? Re-recruiting those guys or helping them evaluate with what you know is coming back, what you believe to be coming back, and guys like Connor Vanover that sat out. how special can your team be if you get both Mason and Isaiah back with these other pieces that you have coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the thing with Mason and Isaiah, I just want to support those guys and support their families. And I've been through this process on both sides. I feel like I know how it works. So I just think right now, because nobody knows what's going on with combines, and I know how hard it is to get invited to the combine, and I can go off our Nevada group, and we actually had, Cam Oliver was invited to the combine after his sophomore year. He he came out early. He did not get drafted. And he was one of 60 players in the combine. Caleb and Cody Martin both went to the combine. The year before, after their senior year, only one of them was invited. So there's so much thought process that has to go into it, and we just want to be supportive and to speculate on where our team is. And we certainly feel, like Mason and Isaiah are two of the premier players in college basketball. So, whether it was anybody in our conference or any other conference, two players like that. I mean, we all know, the player that Isaiah is, and obviously because of missing 5 games, from a statistical standpoint, I mean, the thing that I can't give Isaiah enough credit for is he wanted to come back as early as he possibly could. He wanted to do what was right for the team. He wanted to help the team win. He put himself over the team. The way that he rehabbed, coming in and trying to get ready, he was selfless in trying to do what was right to help the Razorbacks. And I can't state that enough. And then obviously the year that Mason had, we relied on him in so many different areas. And, so we're just here to support those guys. I think if they decided to come back, I think they'd both be two of the best players in the country. And I think that their role would be incredible on our team. And if it's a different, decision, then we're here to do whatever we can to help them.
All right. One last question I had for you. You were obviously with Johnny Jones at LSU the first time you sat on a bench and went through an SEC slate. Then off to Nevada, had great success there. Coming back to Arkansas and having it from a different perspective as running your own program, what's different about the SEC than you remembered it? Is it a better league? Are there anything that you learned this year that maybe caught you by surprise based on your recollection from when you were at LSU?
You know what? I mean, I think the crowds are better. I don't have any numbers in front of me, but, and a lot of it's like, when you scout it, you don't play everybody on the road. But when I was at LSU, we played at Auburn. But we watched Auburn so much this year, and although we didn't go there, I mean, their crowds are amazing. And I thought Alabama had a great crowd, this year when we were there. And obviously the numbers tell that, that Missouri, that was their biggest attended game. And so I think that, and then, the quality of head coaches in our league. There's no league, and I don't think there's any league that even comes close to the coaches on a nightly basis that you have to face. I mean, you're talking about every week going against 2 really good head coaches, and I think the talent, the size, all that stuff is no different at all than when I was at LSU. I think of our LSU team with, Jordan Mickey and Jarrell Martin and Tim Quarterman and Hornsby. That was a talented, long team. And then the Arkansas team, obviously, with Bobby, because we played against them that last game. I mean, you're talking about great size with those two teams alone. So I don't think size or length or any of that surprised us, but I do think the coaching and I do think that some of the attendance in our league has certainly changed from what I remember it.
Thanks, Miss.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bob?
Eric, I was wanting to ask about your 3 red shirts. Maybe you could comment on each of those development. What kind of red shirts do you think they had, and what you're expecting from them moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, JD is he's a guy that got in extra work on his own in the weight room. He got in extra work on the floor. He's a quiet guy that's really competitive and really tough-minded. He doesn't say a lot, but he competes, and he's got great toughness. He can play 2 guard spots for us. He's a guy that can create his own shot. He's a guy that I think is going to be able to create offense through defensively getting steals. I think that the big thing with JD is just getting experience. The one thing that we know from being at Nevada and having guys that sit out a year is those first 3 to 4 games become important for those guys from a confidence standpoint because they've been out for a full season. Connor, he changes the dynamics of what we look like when we get off the bus and in warm-ups. We look different with him because of his size. He can really shoot the basketball. We want him to continue to work on post moves because I think if he gets that thing with his back to the basket, he's got such great touch. Want to continue to work with Connor on his strength and his lower body base to get stronger. Want to continue to work on Connor's upper body strength. But I think the biggest growth that we saw from Connor was he went from not saying much at all on the floor to being one of our better talkers. And communication on the floor is really important for us in our system and what we believe in. And Connor went from kind of a shy, not saying much to being one of our stronger voices. But obviously perimeter shooting, he's going to give us that. And he's just so unique being that size and a guy that can shoot and pass. And then, like I said, we're going to have to figure some different schematic things out for him because he is different in pick and roll coverages and things like that. And then Bebe's a guy that just, he's a worker, 100% energy, at all times. I mean, that's just kind of who he is. He's just a utility guy who really, really works and works and works.
Did you feel good overall about those guys' redshirt seasons? Like they really got a lot done?
I do. One of the things, that we don't really call it a sit-out year. We call it a player development year, and a lot of that's up to the individual player. I mean, we're not going to be able to scrimmage a lot in season, when you have a limited roster. I mean, that's just not going to be able to happen. But we did. Coach Mosier implemented 3-on-3 after every practice, and that's something that the NBA does. And so I think that competition, and then Coach Mosier actually ranked every single day 1 through 6 how each guy performed. And that was good to be able to give feedback to those guys on their matchups and things like that in 3-on-3. So I think they did really well, Bob, but it's not over. I mean, they still have, quite a few months before they'll play a game in November. So it's going to be important that they continue that. But now, obviously, they're a focal point in everything that we do moving forward.
Yeah. I had 2 more questions, which is still less than 13, I think. I guess maybe the year the first Razorbacks in Moncrief to lead Arkansas in scoring, rebounding, assists, steals. And I'm certainly not saying Moncrief, because Moncrief's the gold standard. But what do you think about Mason being the first guy to do that in over 40 years?
I mean, I think really the best thing was, and we had to meet with Mason, was, like, I know that Mason's a 2-3 guard and, an off guard or a small forward. And we had to go to Mason and ask him, hey, Mason, based on our roster, will you trust us if we play you at the power forward spot? And if you play the power forward spot, you're going to get a lot of mismatches. And because he, for the betterment of the team, played that power forward spot, he had the ball in his hands a ton. And so he was a playmaker or a point forward for us. Moving forward, I mean, I think that Mason Jones could play stretches of a game as a point guard and give us great size. Now not a lot, because we know he's a scorer, but for a short segment, he has that in him to be a playmaker, whether that's at the 4 spot or wherever. But he rebounded the ball at a career-high level. His assist, I mean, if you look all the way across the board, he had a career year. And he's going to keep getting better. I don't think that stops. I mean, if he has the same work ethic that he did last summer, and he comes back, he's going to have an even better year. His percentages will go up and his numbers will go up, because he's that type of guy that really, really works.
And then the last one, Jimmy. Is he staying here? Wants to stay here, or is it he shouldn't go home? And just what do you think of his season? Trusting you with his last year of college eligibility, and what do you see as the future for Jimmy? I'm sure he's going to play somewhere, whether it's here or overseas or wherever.
Yeah. So Jimmy is going to head home. Here in the next few days, but he had a great year. He guarded the opposing team's best player every single night. I mean, we got him guarding the center against Indiana, and he guarded the Georgia Tech center for stretches. I think about the defensive assignment that he was given against TCU, against Bain, and what he did. He had an incredible year. We knew, he came out of a great situation at SMU where he played a lot and had good stats and wanted to come back here, and certainly feel like, Jimmy did get an invite. Portsmouth Invitational had reached out. It is, the Portsmouth Invitational is now, not happening, but he was invited to that, which is a great honor. It's one of the stepping stones to play in the NBA. We also got a letter for him. He was being under consideration. They still had not finalized their roster, but he was under consideration for the Reese's game at the Final Four, the All-Star game. I got an email regarding Jimmy's interest in that. So 2 big-time postseason, events. One he was already part of, and the other he was still being under consideration. So it's great to know that people recognized outside of the SEC or Arkansas what type of season he had. And, people are really smart, like, the people that run Portsmouth and NBA scouts. Like, everybody knows that Jimmy Whitt really defended and guarded the best player. Like, that's, basketball is half offense and half defense. And he was a premier defender for us. And like I said, that's half of the game of basketball. And I think I think NBA people recognize that, or at least the people that watch tape or watch games.
I guess whenever, the NBA gets back on course, I mean, certainly somebody's going to give Jimmy a shot, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that, again, no one knows what's going to happen with summer league or anything like that. But, I certainly have already been on the phone with people about Jimmy, and our staff will continue to promote Jimmy as much as we can. Certainly a player like Jimmy is his path's probably summer league, vet camp. That would be his way onto a roster, and we'll have all those discussions with Jimmy and kind of lay that path of what he needs to do to reach his goal.
Okay, thanks, Eric. I'm good, I think.
Thanks, Bob.
Nikki?
Hey, Coach. They canceled EYBL sessions and stuff like that. You don't know when you're going to be able to go back out on the road to recruit. How much of an impact does that have on recruiting? I know you've already offered a bunch of guys, but you won't get to see how they progress, stuff like that. So, how do you think that'll impact your recruiting for 2021 and yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it impact. The one good thing, at least, Nikki, is everybody's on the same level playing field. But I do think it certainly affects, your evaluation. Again, who knows how the rest of the summer plays out, but certainly you hope that everything's, there's normal, gets back to normal at some point, and that, if the summer's, wiped out, or, there's no summer at all, then September evals become important. When guys are at their high school, and I guess from a recruiting and evaluation standpoint, we just have to see how these next couple months play out. But I think you're going to have to work a little bit different pace. Maybe in September, and see multiple guys, and maybe your format or your plan gets adjusted.
Scotty?
Yeah, hey Coach. I was curious, what maybe you've learned about yourself as a coach in your first year here.
Wow, that's a great question. I'm speechless for the first time since I've been here. I think as coaches, you're always learning. I'm speechless. I got to get back to you on that. That's my project for the day.
There you go. I've got another one. I was just kind of curious the inspiration behind the video in the press conference. Was it just kind of having a brainstorm session with someone kind of made it happen?
Yeah, so we, like every morning we talk, and the Pat Eckerman was the brains behind the practice. So I got to give Pat credit, and then, that led to, a few other ideas that we taped or whatever. I threw the part of the press conference stuff by Danielle, and we all, there's like 4 of us every day that just kind of throw wild ideas off of each other, and we're just trying to lighten the mood a little bit. We know the seriousness of what's going on in the world, but having said that, we're all searching for things to entertain us, and that was kind of the, we understand that right now people are on social media, like I said, looking for things, and without any live sporting events, we just want to stay connected to our fan base as best we can. That's the biggest thing is staying connected to our fans and staying connected to recruits.
I know you talked a little bit about your shirt guys, their development years, but what really excites you or stands out to you about J.D. Note?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, JD, we just kind of saw his confidence. I think when he first got here, he might not have been used to the speed and the size. Obviously, coming from Jacksonville, that's going to be different. And then I think he adjusted. And then the next thing was when he was on the scout team, just building his confidence up through scoring on people and those type of things. And I think he's going to be a more consistent 3-point shooter because he's just put so much time into it on his own.
Appreciate it. All right. Any more questions for Coach Muss?
Yes, I have one, Dudley.
Hey, Dudley.
Obviously, we don't know when you'll be able to get back with your team and roster, but what does the NCAA allow y'all to do during the summer these days and the fall in terms of preparation?
Well, we're usually under that 4-hour time frame, Dudley. We're 4 hours a week. However you want to use those. I mean, some people go 45 minutes at a time, some go 30, and then it's the same thing in the weight room. Where you're allowed that same amount of time. So, different people, different programs handle it different ways. Some people use only skill development groups where, maybe it's guards and then they do their time and then they leave and then bigs come in. For us, it'll be full, it'll be a full team. We'll use all of our hours as a team. It won't be individual stuff. So I've done it that way the last 5 years, and that's the way we'll continue to do it because, a lot of it too is, we're going to have so many new people that it's going to be important, from a terminology standpoint and so forth that we get right into team stuff.
And to that end, I guess it's April 15th to May 20th is the late signing period so far. Have you heard any conversation about whether that'll stay the same or will they move it, or what have you heard on that?
I really haven't heard much, Dudley. I mean, I think that all this stuff is, it's almost like what we hear today might change tomorrow, and what we hear tomorrow might change by next Thursday. So, right now it's, I guess the best way to say is, we as coaches are pretty much no different than everyone else, just kind of waiting to see how all this unfolds, whether it's signing period, whether it's, NBA draft date, whether it's, all that stuff is so fluctuating.
Appreciate it, and thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Dudley. Thank you.
All right, last call.
I'm going to jump in with one more. Kyle Deckelbaum. Coach, just what you learned about the fan base this year and about a year on the job, when you think back to some of those sellouts that were already sold out in December, just what you learned about the state and the fan base in a year.
Yeah, I had a pretty good feel, before we even, played, just from speaking around the state, and even, out of the state, like speaking in Memphis to a group of Razorback fans. And, the passion's incredible. When you go recruiting throughout the state, you go into, different schools and people are wearing that Razorback. And so I felt that. And, even as early as going to baseball games and seeing the tailgating and, just things that I have not seen at that level. And then certainly, the crowds that we had, it was amazing. Almost all programs, you can't fill a 12,000 seat arena, let alone one that's, close to 20. It's unheard of. It motivates us. It motivates our players. It motivates our coaching staff to continue to try to connect with our fans in every way possible, to not take any of that for granted because it's so unique. Probably the greatest thing about this year is we know as a staff and our players know if our team plays really, really hard, if we compete, our fans will come and support us. and come and support us with incredible enthusiasm. So, you know, we could not feel more fortunate to be in that situation. Because, like, look, when you drive up to Bud Walton 2 hours before the game, as a coach, like, you can feel the passion's going to be in that building, and that's whether it's a midweek game or whether it's a weekend game. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it for a full season. I mean, everybody can have one or two great crowds, but to do it night after night is, you know, really cool to be a part of it.